Adobe XD is one of the industry standards for creating prototypes. When you want to create workable drafts that people can interact with, you can get feedback, and then you can adapt and present clients with a range of options for the kinds of designs they could ultimately implement. XD helps you create fluid interactions that seem real, but ultimately are just created to enact a prototype, a very first draft of what products could ultimately become, whether they be mobile apps or websites or any kind of interaction that is screen-based can be built in Adobe XD. For this project, we're going to do a kind of range of those things. For this project, we're going to, in our workshops, we're going to create a prototype of an app, and it'll show you kind of the range of options you can use in Adobe XD. As well, in these workshops, I'm going to incorporate interviews from two of our TAs in DCC 105, Tiffany and Divya, who used Adobe XD as part of their capstones. And I wanted to start off with my discussion with Tiffany to give you a sense of the ways that she utilized Adobe XD in her projects. And then we'll jump into setting up your own initial artboards and getting started in Adobe XD today. Okay, so let's turn over to my conversation with Tiffany. Okay, thanks for taking some time to talk about your capstone project and how you used XD for that. So I was hoping you could talk to the students a little bit about the project, about how you used XD, how you did usability testing, how you figured out what to do and what the final product was. So just give us an overview of what the capstone project was.
Sure. So my project was a pair project. I worked with my friend Anna, and we redesigned the Maryland Motor Vehicle Agency, I think is the name. Yeah, the MVA website, because beforehand it was kind of like a mess. Like a lot of links didn't make any sense. Like the flow of the website was very confusing. They had a lot of elements on the page that looked like ads, but were actually like vital information.
Yeah.
And so there were like a lot of things that needed to be improved upon, because we really were thinking like, this is kind of an essential website for like, people to get their license, get them renewed, sometimes even like register to vote, like we're just thinking like of those implications. So we wanted to redesign a government website and see, how redesigning information can help, people complete basic tasks that are like necessary to function.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a sense, XD is really well suited for making mistakes or, testing out things that, you want to just see if they work with people. You want to put it out there into the world and find out if people connect with it, if it makes sense to them. And then if it doesn't, you can scrap it, as opposed to writing a lot of lines of code or working pretty diligently on a website only to find out that the thing that you've been working a whole week on actually doesn't work with your audience. So Adobe XD seems to fit within that paradigm that you guys are working in as well, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so how did you test out the site once you got the XD site up and running?
It was a lot of us just clicking around every single like possible link, and we'd be like, oh, that should probably do something if we click there.
Right.
A lot of like iterations. And I think, during the capstone, the both of us learned like what iterative design meant, really.
Nice.
And like just going through testing, having our friends click buttons and being like, does that make sense? Do you think that should go there?
Yep.
And I think another point was that we were really trying to play around with the tool, and we were like, oh, how can we like hack this so it looks like we're, scrolling on a page, or like this tool button is expanding. So we really wanted to like see, like push the limits on what we could do.
So do you mind showing us, maybe you could share your screen and show the project that you worked on and talk through some of those hacks that you did and how you ended up kind of accomplishing what you did.
I used Adobe XD like during another project, and during that time I also learned like, oh, there are better ways to have done the things that we did.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I think part of the learning these design platforms as a whole is you start off, you work with it, and then you figure out maybe even years later, oh, there was a much easier way to do that. And that's just part of the process, I think, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me zoom out a little bit. These are like all the screens that we ended up building. We didn't even build out like the full website, just like main portions of it.
Yeah.
And I'll take you to our prototype view. So here is like a view of, here we go.
If you click on.
Yeah. Yeah, so here's a view of like where everything goes. And it got kind of vast and intricate, but pretty much like we tried to figure out like where exactly every link could go.
Right.
And link to different pages there. Maybe I'll play the website actually.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see this website, or do you see like my other thing?
I see the wiring still on my end.
Oh. Okay, let me share.
Yeah, share the desktop instead of just the platform, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, let me share Adobe XD and see if that works. How about now?
Yep, perfect.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So this is the landing page of our website. So as you can see, it's scrollable. And to like achieve that effect, we kept this top bar like fixed and everything else on the page scrolls. And that's something that you can do in Adobe XD. Like there's a button to click to keep that link there. And then a couple different things that you can click. Let's see, renewing driver's license is one. So click on that icon, it takes you to like theoretically another page. And so this is scrollable, but this remains fixed, which is another thing that built out. And this is supposed to simulate like an open drop-down menu.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really a lot of this work is just simulating what would happen once the site is live, and once you decided that this worked and you wanted to go ahead and code this in HTML, CSS, and various other web coding languages. Here, you start here and you basically are kind of creating simulations of what that's would ultimately look like using some of the tricks of that XD enables, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like this is basically like one piece of the design process. Like if we were to fully build out this entire thing, this is like a very detailed like idea of what we want, and then we would give this to engineers who would actually build out the platform. Let me see. There's like another interesting piece that I wanted to talk about. I think it's locations. Yes. So here's another thing that another page that we were kind of proud of. So this is supposed to simulate like, you know, a list of locations and a couple different locations here. Like if you click the first one, it should expand. Click it to expand. So those are like two separate pages, basically. So when I click this, I'm going to a new page that we made, just that this piece is changed.
Right.
Although I think in Adobe XD, they just released an update where like components can have their own state.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so like they're always like improving things. But yeah, interestingly, we did not build this as a component, which we should have.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so what did you end up doing instead?
This was actually, I think, just a group of objects.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and this was before.
I see. So then you adapted it each time as you kind of duplicated the group of objects. Okay, right.
Yeah, it was a bunch of objects that we grouped together, and then there's that function where you can like expand the group. I forget, it's like green, but like basically you can like create like a list of the same object over and over again. Yep. And we went in and changed the text. Yep. But yeah, had we had known that like the next step was just to create a component so that we had something reusable, that probably would have made it a lot easier for us.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this, I think maybe we could talk a second about just the layout and the ideas behind your prototype here, because this is just dramatically different from the MVA's site in terms of legibility, hierarchy, sort of balance, where your eye goes. How did you make those decisions? What went into the design process in terms of where things went and how they looked, how big they were, et cetera?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we actually settled upon this idea kind of like during the capstone class. Like Anna and I were just like, oh my gosh, let's look up really ugly websites. Then we went on this like tour of every single state's like MBA's website. And we were like, wow, some of these are like really, really bad. And then some of them were actually very promising. And so we basically built ours off of like a survey of all 50 websites, pulling pieces from sites that we thought were really good. Like this entire layout of like big icons, I think came from either North or South Carolina.
Nice. Yep.
Grab bits and pieces. And we also did a couple, like we read articles or like articles and some papers, I think, of different like design principles. Mm-hmm. So like the thing about earlier with the banner ads, that's like, there's like a name for that, I think, where like when your eye looks at something and it looks like an ad, you immediately just look away. Like we're just like, we start to do that now. So to avoid putting information that looks like an ad, we like move them into something more like a news box or something like that. Yeah. And just try to reduce like the amount of ad-like graphics on the page.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we'll do in this class as well, is get students to do what we would call an environmental scan, where you go out and just find everything related to the kind of project you're working on, what already exists, who does it well, how do they do it well, what can you steal ideas from and reuse them in ways that are going to really benefit your site. I mean, I think you guys have done that in a really effective way here. Nice. Well, thank you for showing this off. This was a really successful project, and I think Adobe XD was definitely the right pathway to go, because then you can go in, test it out, do that iterative design where you can figure out what works and what doesn't and go back and tweak it and retest it again until you're settled on things that work. So nice work. This was really great. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we head over to XD really quickly. Okay, so I wanted to, while you're with me here, I wanted to just demonstrate a couple of things that students are going to need to do right off the bat when they're working with XD, which is how to collaborate in the space, and then how to make sure assets are shared across both of those systems. I'm going to do a iPhone 10 wireframe that I'm going to use here. And what I'm going to do is import an asset that I've built in Photoshop. So I'm going to jump over to my workshops here, and XD, and then I have a PSD file for this app that I'm going to build out for long distance relationships, LDR, that we'll build here. So this is then pulled into this main screen. And what I want to do, a couple of things here really quickly with you. I want to go ahead and share this with you. So I'm going to save it first as LDR prototype 1. And then it saves to the cloud. And this, I think, is really, this kind of tripped me up initially with XD, which is
how you can save locally to your machine or save to the cloud. And when we're collaborating, we really need to make sure that we have it in the cloud. And
Yeah.
so you're signed into your terp mail, right? Or your UMD
Yeah.
mail? Okay, great.
I'm on my tip now.
Okay, so once I click on this button here, I can go ahead and add people to the project. Here's our sample prototype, and I can invite you, and the invitation is sent. The one thing that, have you gotten that invitation? Because there was actually an interesting thing that has happened with me in the past. Has that come over to you yet, Tiffany, that invite?
I'm gonna open yeah, I just saw it on my email.
Okay. Because one of the things that I need to do next is actually click this enable co-editing option.
Mm-hmm.
And what this is going to do is essentially transform Adobe XD into a Google Docs version of cloud editing where we can simultaneously edit the project. So this is co-editing enabled, is highlighted down here. And then once you click into the project and join it, then we can actually simultaneously work together. If we didn't do that, and what has happened in the past and the way that we used to have to do this was I would say, okay, Tiffany, go ahead and do your edits, and then let me know when you're done and saved, and then I'll jump in, and then I'll make my changes, and we'll keep saving back and forth. So were you able to open the project at all?
It looks like I don't have access.
Okay, let's see. And I wonder if that is the terp mail issue again.
Yeah.
Okay,
it might be.
So let me try this. What is it, 112? There you are.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So that's an interesting thing that's been happening, is that when you add the terp mail into it, it actually doesn't function correctly. That's good to know. This is new for me as well. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll invite you that way. And let's see if that works for you. Okay, and while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead. I've imported this screen into XD. Actually, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to double click on the name, and I'm going to call this loading screen, because that's going to be the loading screen.
It looks like I'm in now, but they're saying that someone is editing this document in an older version of XD.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yes. So let's see, go to your About XD, and what version are you working in?
Okay, I'm on 32.0. Wait, 32.0.22.11.
Got it. Okay, and I'm on 31.2. So this, I think, is another critical thing, that both people need to be on the most recent version. What I'm going to do is jump over to the Creative Cloud. And I'm going to just double check to see if that update is available for me, to make sure that I can do that. Update available. Yeah, and I had actually just downloaded XD to this machine, because I have a new laptop I'm working on, and I probably had downloaded XD maybe 4 days ago, maybe, I don't know. So yeah, making sure everybody is on the most recent version of XD is good. All right, so I've updated Adobe XD to your version, so we can collaborate and make sure we're on the same system. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and open that project again, which is a cloud document, LDR. Okay, let me make sure that you are still in there. Okay, great.
I think I'm in.
Okay, great. So if you click on the loading screen to highlight it, I think I should be able to see the work that you do. Yes, okay. So I see a red rectangle around that. And if I hover over it, there you are. So what I'd like you to do then is to go ahead and hold Alt or Option on your computer and then click and drag to duplicate the loading screen to the right of that. Great. Okay, so I can see all the work that you've just done. And I think actually what happened was we moved, I'm gonna move it back here really quickly because I don't think it, oh, you know what?
Oh, I clicked the
Yes,
yeah.
that's right. So click on the words loading screen actually.
Yeah.
Nice. Actually, I don't know if that made, oh, what that did, undo that really quickly. And click on the word loading screen, because I think it should pull over the artboard as well, not just the asset. Because right now we have, yes, great. Okay, loading screen one. So now we see at the top, it says loading screen for that first one, and then we have loading screen one for the second. So that was all done by you. I've watched you do it in real time. If you were to double click on the loading screen and then double click on the word L, or on the letter L, does it show anything in terms of the font that's missing or anything? Or does it tell you what font it is?
It tells me what font it is, but it's not missing. I might already have it actually.
Oh yeah, okay, great. And I just wanted to show people how we could, like, if we wanted to change that, how we would go about doing that. So I'm signed into fonts.adobe.com, and we can sync up our fonts. If any font that we use in this app, we want to make sure that it works for both of us and then also goes onto our phones, that it's an Adobe friendly font, not something that's really specific to my computer, which is what I did the first time around when I worked on this. I used one of my favorite fonts called Gotham, but that's not part of anybody else's computer really, or any phones. And it kept kicking out this error that you're using a font that is not a part of this phone or not a part of this computer. So really using Adobe fonts instead is I think the way to go. So we could look for a Gothic style font, for example. So like Franklin Gothic is really popular one. And I can kind of just click through these and see what they look like Tablet Gothic. So maybe you could go to Tablet Gothic as well. And what we'll do is we can activate these. So you can kind of decide which, and actually I think based on this, what we'll probably use is just Tablet Gothic at the top. So at the bottom of my screen, it says you've activated 14 fonts from Tablet Gothic. And here, if I double click on the L, to get through to.
All right, I think I got that.
Okay, great. So here I have this particular font at the moment. And then if I type in Tablet Gothic, that's great. And what I want it is to be a bold instead. And now you could do the same thing to R, for example, and then it's just shared on our systems from then on. And then once we get that in place, we can also then create a character style out of that, where we have Tablet Gothic at a super large size of 260 pixels. So that's, that's one way that you and I can collaborate across this without missing out on fonts in that way. So then we can continue to work on this and collaborate on it. Okay, and then one of the things that we will also demonstrate for people is how to pull in different UI kits as well. Now, one of the things I was wondering, since you're on a PC and I'm on a Mac, if you go up to File, Get UI Kits, and go to Apple iOS, is that available to you?
Let's see. Yes, but in PC, there's like a hamburger menu on the left, top left,
Yeah.
and you click that, and then you get the option to get UI kits.
Oh, great. Maybe why don't I'm going to stop sharing. Will you share your computer and then take us over to the UI kits for that?
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So you click this menu here, the top. You go to Get UI Kits, and there's one for Apple iOS. So you want to click that one.
Great. Yes, give it a shot.
All right. And that should take us here.
Yeah, and I think we'll try to, let's stick with the XD file for iOS 13 for the time being anyway. 14 hasn't yet.
Okay. Are these the ones that give you like basically another XD file with
Yes.
like a bunch of assets? Okay.
Yeah, and I think this has changed a little bit. I guess we'll see when you open it. Yeah, because it's a DMG file. Does your PC have any trouble with the DMG files at all? Which I thought were native to to Apple's operating system.
It looks like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a DMG file is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is what I thought. That's great to know. Let me go ahead and jump over to my computer here, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. They don't have a kit for Figma.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I think you can go in and find all of the different kits at that point. Let me jump over here. So one of the nice things, I guess, about you and I working across machines here is that you don't have access to Apple's UI kit, but I can pull that in and then we can share it. So what I will do, I'll go to Get UI Kits, iOS, same process that you just went through. I'll find the iOS 13, save that file. And here, this is really different than most UI kits because you're installing this entire software that you have to agree to and all of these things. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the iPhone guide. And now I actually have a file I can share with you, but what I'll probably do is simply pull over some of these templates that we find useful. Like I'm really interested in using the number pad, for example. So I think we'll start there and I'll kind of copy. I'm going to hold shift and select some of these controls. Then I'm just going to, actually, let's see, I'm going to click on the names of these three. I'm going to go Command C on my machine and then jump back over to our file. And then I'm going to paste these in. Yep. Okay. And they're huge. I want to move them off to the side because these were things that we're just going to reference in our file. So do you see those now? Okay.
Let me see. Yes, I can see them.
Nice. Okay, great. So that's one way that we can collaborate on different UI kits that wouldn't work for your machine or wouldn't work for my machine. We can just pull them in, and now that we've got them into this cloud document, we're able to then collaborate together on that. Okay. Well, thanks for joining me for this first part anyway, and then I'm going to walk people through the rest of the build for this and give them a sense of how to continue on. But I appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Okay. Thanks for taking a bit of time to tell us about your capstone project and show us how to collaborate on that initial stage of just getting people together in XD and then working collaboratively in it. So I appreciate your help with that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
We are here looking at our initial art boards that I created with Tiffany, and I wanted to give you a couple more steps to get the prototype up and running for the very first art boards that you're going to do, and just give you the very basic overview of what Adobe XD can do and how it functions. What I'm going to do here is show you how to get the loading screen from your logo into that first screen, whatever you decide to do for that first screen. I'm going to go ahead and delete these letters here. We're going to start by asking participants of this app or users of this app, long distance relationships, what their phone number is. That's how we're going to have them all connect. In order to do that, I want to have a consistent typography across the entire app. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that over from Apple's UI kit, which I've uploaded to Canvas. So you can take a look at that on Canvas as well. So in XD, I'm going to go ahead and open up UI templates, design templates for the iPhone, which were opened up earlier. What iOS 13 uses is a typography named San Francisco Pro, and that's what we are going to use. And what we have here is a dark font, and then also a light font for moments when you need a darker background. And we're going to go ahead and pull all of these over, actually. So we have 6 different artboards here. What I'm going to go ahead and do is, actually, you know what? I need to grab each one of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the name. I'm going to hold Shift and just click through all of these. So I'm just holding Shift and I'm clicking on the name of everyone, and it selects all of those artboards. I can go up to Edit Copy, or Command or Control C. Let's go back to LDR prototype, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste Command V or Control V, and it pulls them over here. And actually, let me see if I can move those down. I don't want these to be necessarily a part of my prototype, so I'll move them over with the Apple UI kit here. Okay, the nice thing about these as well is if I go ahead and click on my text styles here, and next to character styles, I hit the plus sign, all of a sudden my character styles are entirely populated with all of those various options. And I can do the same over here, and it adds on the dark versions of those. I can add the center aligned versions as well. And I'm going to go ahead and just stop there. And I've got now just a ton of typographic options, and maybe too many, to be honest. So I may end up reducing a lot of this. But here, the nice thing is I've got one font. I've got all of these different sizes that I can pull from and different colors as well. So I'm going to go over to my loading screen. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and pull out a bit of type, and I'm going to just click here, and I'm going to type welcome to LDR. And right now, the styling of this is all off. That's okay. What I want to do is left align I want it to be white, which it is. Currently, it's at 16% opacity. I'm going to drag that up to 100. The size of this needs to come up a bit as well. So I might bump it up to 64 points. This will also then need to come up to a similar size, so the line height is about the same. Okay, I'm going to choose the text tool, and I am going to write, what is your phone? Yeah, let's go back to lowercase number. And let's try some of these font styles out here and see what they produce for us. I'll click through some of these to see if anything kind of sticks. And actually it's just, oh, you know what? Let me choose that. Okay. Sorry, I needed to click away and then I could start clicking on some of my text styles to see if the typographic styles here are working. The 34 looks pretty good. Let me check out the opacity again. It's for some reason set at 16%. You know what, that needs to come up actually quite a bit, and I can just click on this and use the arrow key to bump this up, maybe to about 42. I'll align these for the moment. I don't have all of my elements out yet. I'm going to drag out, I'm going to choose the line tool and just drag and hold shift to pull out a line and make the border white. And the size is about 3. Now what I want to do here is pull in a keypad so people can list their, put their phone number. I think good usability when you're asking for somebody's phone number is bringing up just a digits only keypad. I think having the full keypad is unnecessary. So here, let's just go over to our Apple designs here that we had pulled over earlier from the UI kit. And I've got this, and I'm going to hold Option. I'm just going to duplicate it. So I held Option and then clicked and dragged it over. Now I'm going to be using a keypad like this quite a bit, and I want to turn it into a component. So what I can look at here is what are my components that I've got listed here. I've got some different kind of keyboards, but I want to go ahead and create my own here. And what I really just need is the keypad itself. I don't need the full thing. So I'm going to double click and I can go ahead and pull this element out, or I could similarly just click on the back and then hit delete. So I double clicked on the white part and then just hit delete. I can do the same here. Oops, sorry. Where you kind of eventually double click into things. I see the 4 transformers. If I clicked on those, it would make things round, for example, if I wanted rounded corners. But then I can hit delete on that, and then it just gives me this blank keypad, which is great. That's all I want. So I select that, and under components, I hit plus, and it says keypad numeric light, and I can call this something that I remember, like Jason's keypad, so I don't confuse it with any of the other kinds of keypads. Now, this is a component I can pull out at any given time into various moments of my project, and you see the diamond here, which is, this is an original version of this keypad. I can go ahead and pull it out. Here's a copy of it. Here's the original of it. If I go ahead and just go in here, for example, and let me just do something weird and hit P. So I've just changed one aspect of this original component, and it echoed out across all versions of it. Now, if I pull another one out, instead of the number 2, it's got a P, you know, just randomly. I'm going to undo all of that. But if I went and did that here, and I'm just double clicking until I finally land at that thing, if I changed this particular instance of a component, it doesn't affect the original. So if I went ahead and pulled out another one, it looks like that original version of the keypad. So it's nice to have this original. If I ultimately say, you know, this, for all of these digital, I just pulled out 100 different keypads in my prototype. My client said they don't want the letters. So I have to go in here, and instead of, you know, deleting every single instance in the keypad, I can just go back to my original version of that component and change those things, and it echoes out across all of the instances of those components. I'll just delete that one. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to 2. Or you know what? No, I'm just going to delete it, pull out a new instance of Jason's keypad. I'm going to pull that right here. Use my arrow keys to kind of nudge it into place wherever I want it. Same thing with this. My phone number will go there. And you notice that as you drag things around in XD, you sometimes get these purple indicators which tell you that where you are currently at is spaced evenly with the thing that's right above it. So if you wanted that kind of spacing, that's great that you are aligned if that's what you were aiming for that particular thing. All right. I'm going to drag out another instance of this. So instead of loading screen, this should be called something like screen 1, or you can call it, you know, phone number screen, something like that. I'm going to, again, click on the name, never clicking on the artboard. I'm clicking on the name. Every time I want to duplicate an artboard and work from that, I click on the name, I hold Option, and I click and drag from the name over, and then that gives me a new instance. And again, similarly, I can space these out evenly, and I will call this something like screen 2 or phone number. And now what I'm going to do is, just to save time for this particular version of what we're doing, I'm going to type out a phone number. And I can go back to my character styles and see if one of these works. And the other thing is, I never really added this to character styles, which is a 64-point bold. So I can click on that and hit plus, and then I've got that from then on. And this is a 42 bold. I have not used that. So I wonder if I should try the 42 for this. That might be a little bit big. I'm going to go with it for now, and let's see how that works. This is the design panel. This is where you create your assets, you create your artboards, you create sort of the basics of it. To make it function, you have to jump over to the prototype option, which is up here on the left. Okay, so I am currently on the prototyping screen. It did not look different because I haven't done any prototyping yet. So I'm going to kind of zoom in on this loading screen, and you'll notice this home. Anytime I kind of click on it, it's got a little home button there. The home button means, what do you want the first screen to be for your users? And I'm going to click home. And the nice thing about this is you can create different kinds of versions of your app, and you can test them out and see if they work. And all you have to do, instead of creating 2 different versions of the app, let's say your client wants to know if people like this logo better or if they like the other logo better. If I created under design, just as an example, I'm going to duplicate this, and let me change the background on this to, you know, maybe I need to drag out something that maybe is a little darker or something. So let's say your client wanted to know if a darker version of this would work better. For some of your tests, you can actually just click here and then you have all of your assets as well. And that's called a different flow version here. So you've got flow 1 and flow 2. And I'm going to go ahead and shut that off. But you can see that you can do what's called A/B testing, where you can see which version works better fairly easily just by deciding to what you click that home button on. And right now we are going to click on this again, and we're going to drag this. This is kind of the essence of XD right here. This is called a wire. And you're basically saying, where do you want to go next? And I want it to go to this artboard. Not anything in particular in the artboard. I'm not going to click on it necessarily. I just want to just kind of drop it over the artboard. And what is going to be the instance of this? Oh, and you know what? I screwed up. Let me back up this because I want to use an instance of time, but actually what I did was wrong. In order to use time as an instance, instead of clicking on a particular asset within it, which I clicked on this design, you actually have to click on the artboard itself by clicking on the name. That brings up a different wire. And now if I pull that wire over to the next, one of the triggers that it gives me is time. And I'm going to do 1.5 seconds for this. And it asks you what kind of action do you want. And you can have a dissolve, you can have it slide in or something along those lines. And you can decide what you want that to look like. And we can have it auto animate, for example. And then you can set the duration for that. And what we can do here is just hit the play button, and that went really fast. Let me see if we want that to go a bit longer. It might be the auto animate that's the problem. Okay, that was a little bit better. Okay, and then it just sort of dissolved into that anyway. There wasn't much of an animation there. If we wanted to, we could also animate the keypad sliding in, which is what I want to do next. But just to show you the prototyping process, let's imagine that somebody clicks on this component anywhere. And what I'm doing here is a very shorthand. You'll see in the next video how Divya used keypads to simulate typing in this. And here I'm just going to do sort of a very easy shortcut, where if they tap anywhere on this component, it's going to lead to here. And then we'll show the phone number, for example. So I'll hit play. Oh, let me go back to my screen here, my first screen. Let's hit play from there. That loads in. I click on this, it gives you your phone number. So very basic actions that it links to. And this is the most sort of basic thing you can do in Adobe XD, just to give you a sense of this. So here I can see the flow. I can click flow 1 and see how things are ultimately laid out here and wired up. And this is kind of basically the essence of Adobe XD. All right, I wanted to show you just some very basic animation features that will bring your prototypes to life a bit. What I want to do here is have the keypad slide in rather than just appear on that second screen. So I'm going to pull this screen over just a bit. I'm going to go ahead and hold Option and duplicate this artboard so I have it as my second artboard. And what I'm going to use here is a transition called auto animate. In order to auto animate components, the components need to be named identically. It only works if things are given the same name. So I clicked on this here, right here under screen 1. It's called Jason's keypad. Here, called Jason's keypad. That's great. I'm also going to animate the line 1. It's also called line 1 here. So that's great. I don't need to worry about that. What I want to do here, I'm going to hold shift and drag this down just at the edge of my artboard. And I've noticed sometimes when I pull things too far away from the artboards, instead of animation, I get just sort of a fade in. So if you're expecting an animation and instead it just sort of dissolves into from being 0% opacity to 100%, perhaps your component is a little too far away um, from your artboard. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop the opacity to 0, and I'm going to do the same thing with the line here as well. And I'm going to auto animate this in the prototype tab. Now you'll remember we've already wired this up. Anytime you want to get rid of a wire, you accidentally wired things up, just drag the wire away and let go. We're good to go. It's no longer wired up. So I'm going to click on screen 1 here, and we're going to go just drag it over to what is now screen 2, or we can say fade in keypad. Maybe that's a little bit easier rather than screen 1, screen 2, things along those lines. And maybe I'll name this phone number just so I know exactly what we're dealing with here. All right, let me see if that, oh, and the other thing is, let me click on the wire to see what I'm doing. Fade in keypad, duration, maybe I'll bump that out to 0.6. And then same thing with the time, instead of 2 seconds, maybe 0.6 again. We'll just play around with the timing. I'm not sure exactly what's gonna look good. It's all experimentation here. So I click again on loading screen and hit play. And then the keypad slides in. If I click on it, there's the phone number. So if I don't want the phone number to simply just show up like that as well, maybe I want it to slide in. I can also animate that as well, where I can copy my the phone number and I can paste it onto here, pull it off to the side, and drop the opacity. And then if I go back to prototype here, auto animate should slide in. Let's see if that worked. Can I click on it? There's the phone number. Okay, great. So those are just some very basic ways of handling animation where you can begin to have things move around the screen. You can have them also attached to, instead of taps, for example, you can have different kinds of gestures like dragging, for example. And we'll get into some of that in our next lesson. So what I want you to do here is just get to where we are here, where we've got a couple of basic phone numbers. We will spend our next session really building out the rest of the prototype, and we're going to look at Divya's capstone project as well that used Adobe XD, and look at how she did her various approaches to dealing with the prototype. So what I'd like you to do here, once it's saved, go ahead and click up to the share button. And what you are doing is inviting me, which is jfarman @umd.edu, and make sure that the co-editing enabled button is ready to go as well. And that's how you and your team are going to start the process of working on your prototype. Okay, I will see you in our next video.